How's it going, everybody? Matt Borey here from the American Casino Guidebook with a very special guest today. I have a Miklos, who is a certified public accountant. How are you doing today, Miklos?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me this morning with you.
Of course. And give us a little background on yourself before we hop into all this new stuff about the big, beautiful bill and how it's going to change gambling taxes.
We are a Southern California-based CPA firm, helping clients mainly in California, but of course we have some clients out of state. Of course, SoCal, Los Angeles being so close to Vegas, we have clients who happily go out and have some fun. Some recreational players and some, of course, who are professional and make a living out of sports betting.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to do this video because I've seen a lot of articles. I've seen people talking on TV about the changes to the big beautiful bill, and I have seen a lot of conflicting information about this and how it's going to change. So I wanted to talk to the professional and get the correct information. So I guess let's hop into it real quick. And the main thing that everybody's talking about is this change to 90%. So it used to be that if you're not familiar, if you're a gambler and you hit on a machine a jackpot of $1,200 or more on one single spin, it triggers a tax form called the W-2G. It's like a W-2 that you get from your job for any form of income, but it is the G is for gambling. And it used to be that if you itemized your deductions, you could write off 100% of your losses against all your winnings for the year. So if you had, say, $50,000 in W-2Gs and you lost, 60 or 70,000 for the year gambling, if you wrote off you itemized your deductions, you could write off 50,000 of your losses and it would be a wash. So you would not get any extra income for the year. But now they've changed it and it is only 90%. So is that, but I've heard the different wording where some people have said it's 90% of your losses and some people say it's only 90% of your winnings. And I've heard that that can be two completely different things. So which one is it?
You are absolutely correct. Depending on what you just described, there's coming out with the different outcomes. The interpretation of the new tax legislation called OBA, which have implemented significant and sweeping changes for many industries, including the gambling. We need to make a very big distinction between professional players versus casual gamblers.
Mm-hmm.
Where it will really make a significant impact is the professional players world, because based on as it is written, the deduction of your losses or the expenses that you have incurred is limited to 90%. So, for example, a professional player may goes to several tournaments, they bet $2 million, they lose $2 million before the OBA going into effect as of January 1, 2026, you came out with zero taxes. In the new legislation as it stands, it would limit the losses, which is $2 million minus 10%. So the total deduction that the player can take is only $1.8 million, leaving them with a $200,000 of, for better of lack of terms, a phantom income. That income, that $200,000 will be subject to income taxes as well as Social Security Medicare tax, which are usually referred to as FICA taxes. So it is going to be a taxable item for a professional player of $30,000 of FICA taxes plus whatever income tax bracket they will be falling under if they have other type of source of income. So this is a significant impact for a lot of people, especially in the professional community side.
And so I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the main difference between if you're filing as a professional gambler or if you're filing as just a fun gambler is if you're a professional gambler, on top of writing off your losses, you can also write off your like travel expenses and your hotel rooms and rental cars and all that, right? That's the main difference.
So very true. This is when it's a professional player, it is running a business. So all
Hmm.
associated expenses, maintaining the business is this business deductible aspect.
Hmm.
So versus, as you indicated, a casual gambler, they would be deducting the 90% of the losses against Schedule A, but only if they are itemizing.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of people who, on the casual side, do not maintain records accurately, and the
Hmm.
winnings are, of course, not necessarily always significant unless you win the jackpot.
Yeah.
But in an overall level, it will impact both, but it will most impact everybody who is a professional side because now players will decide, is it worth for me to participate in a tournament when I know I
Hmm.
will not be winning? But I
Hmm.
went there to practice, to learn and improve my skills or connect with other fellow players. And of course, these buyouts are significant in many of the tournaments. So this makes it very, very challenging and very costly, prohibitive potentially for
Hmm.
a full-time player.
Well, I guess, and the other main difference is if you're a professional gambler, like you said, you have to play, it's a business, so you have to pay that self-employment tax on top of, it's the same thing as you get your paycheck, all the withholding tax, the Social Security tax, the Medicare, that all comes out. So if you're a professional gambler, you have to pay all that on your gambling winnings as well.
Yes, and you're of course paying both sides, the employer and the employee side, because you are
Ah, I forgot
self-employed
about
in
that.
this case. And so that's
Yes.
why the 15.3% kicks in.
Uh-huh.
And in our example of a $200,000, you automatically have a $30,000 plus
Hmm.
taxes that you have to pay and you have to
Hmm.
account for.
Now, here's the thing that I don't understand though, because when you write off, because the thing is, if you don't itemize your taxes, which I think a vast majority of people do not do that. They just use the standard deduction, which is what, 20 something thousand, 30 something thousand, I think,
Yes. Yes, depending on
ballpark.
whether
I know
you're
it changes every
married
year.
or you're filing single, of course, that also
Yeah.
matters.
So it's about that much. So if you don't have more in deductions than whatever the standard deduction is, you use the standard deduction. And if you use the standard deduction, you're SOL. You're so out of luck. You got to pay the taxes on all those jackpots, whether or not you won or not. So it seems very strange to me that you know it's affecting such a small amount of people that itemize their deductions when they gamble. There's such a small amount of people that itemize their deductions. There's an even smaller amount of people that itemize their deductions and hit jackpots in casinos. And so it's such a small amount of people that are affected by this. I'm not sure why they did it, but here we are.
So as you very well put it, so if you are married filing jointly, it's about $29,000 for 24 purposes. If you are single, it's about $14,600. People not usually take care of records, but this is where record keeping will become incredibly crucial to
Mm-hmm.
maintain. Have the casinos or other establishments tracking what your winnings and losses are. Maintaining those records will be incredibly crucial because now you have to account for it because of course there's no uniform or global accounting for all of your winnings and losses because depending on where you play, each house has its own cards or players rules and activities, what you get or what the benefits are. So you do have to maintain that. It's going to be additional burden for taxpayer, whether you are a professional or a non-professional. It will
Mm-hmm.
make things more expensive for taxpayers to prepare the returns across the
Yes.
board.
Yes, that's one thing that a lot of people do not understand. If you gamble a lot, you 100% must have a gambling log. My dad and I do it all our videos. We go for that. I mean, we keep track in our other channel, the Jackpot Gents. At the end of every video, you see how we do for the day and how we're doing for the year. So that makes our job a lot easier. But the law says if you go to a casino and you put in $5 and you do a spin on a slot machine and you win $5 and you cash out for $10, you are supposed to legally tell the IRS that you won that $5 no matter what. A lot of people
Exactly.
don't do that, but you should be doing that. But you have to keep a gambling log because I've heard that the win loss statements, people are like, oh, I get a win loss statement from the casino at the end of the year. The IRS does not like those, correct?
You have to substantiate your
Mm-hmm.
records at the end of the day.
Hmm.
We are all self-filers. We tell the government what our incomes are, and you are absolutely right. We are supposed to report on our worldwide income. And by the way, that doesn't matter whether you play in the US or you play offshore or on a ship. You're supposed to report your total income for the year, whether you get a W-2G or not. And many places, depending on how much you play, for example, a bingo or a slot machine, when you win more than $1,200, that's when the establishment will give you a W-2G. Below that, you don't. So if you play in multiple locations, you may not reach on a single location the 1,200 requirement, but you may reach that total amount globally, and you still have to report it. When
Hmm.
it comes to the expenses, you have to substantiate, you have to be able to prove it. And that comes from those casino logs as well as other activities. So if you are a professional player, you should be having a separate bank account, a separate credit card to
Hmm.
record and maintain your expenses that are associated to your business.
Hmm.
So this is requiring a lot more effort from taxpayers to do it right if they don't want to pay more taxes than they are legally required. Okay. So you asked me about why this happened. The reason why it happened is because it happened in the Senate version, because of the budget reconciliation requirements. In order to pass the law, they needed to make some revenue generations. And based on the Congress, based on the finance people who were supporting the legislation, they determined that this change will generate about $1 billion worth of extra income over a certain period of time, which helped them to pass and meet that budget reconciliation requirements. As you can see, people are at work, make sure that they can pass laws, but there are consequences where some people benefit, some people will not benefit from activities.
Hmm.
Do you want to hear some good news though?
Yes.
Both sides of the aisle. For example, Representative Dina Titus from Nevada and even Ted Cruz are looking into how to modify or not the existing OBA bill, but create additional legislation to help players to avoid this. So not all hope is lost yet, but that will be up to legislation when these changes or when the reversal of the 10% loss or generating of an additional phantom income for gamblers will be suspended or modified for future purposes. But currently, the legislation is aware that it is hurting both players, but also casinos and other establishments where they are supporting the community. And this is a significant impact revenue generation wise for the businesses as well as for the individuals who will have to now pay additional taxes as a result.
Yeah, a lot of the my fellow casino YouTubers were very upset about this and said that it's not really worth it for them to play high limit anymore because if you play, that's the thing is, if you play very high limit slots, like if you play a slot machine and you're doing $100 a spin, it's not very hard to win 12 times the amount that you're betting on a slot machine. So if you're betting $100 a spin, or heck, I've seen people do $250 a spin on a slot machine on YouTube on some of these bigger channels. You only have to win 5 times your spin amount to get trigger that tax form. So there's a lot. Even still, I mean, the most we bet on our channel is I think $25 a spin on video poker, and I'm sitting at I think I've got like $175,000 in W2Gs already this year.
Make sure that you're accounting for all the losses that you are doing and the associated costs. But on the professional side, this is where it becomes very interesting because in every other type of business, when I have an income, I have business expenses associated with it. I can turn into a loss for the year because that just life happens. My expenses were more or equal to my income for the year. There are no limitations on that side. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a surprising factor how the gambling community is being impacted and they are a bona fide business.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a 10% haircut on your deductions that can be significant, especially for players who are continuously and regularly attending events
Mm-hmm.
and they are trying to better themselves.
Yeah, it's they call it the sin tax, like they that's why there's taxes on alcohol, there's taxes on cigarettes. It's they consider it a sin tax. I know a lot of professional gamblers as well because I've been doing this a long time, and they are all very, very upset.
It is going to be a very interesting year. And who said taxes are boring? But this
Yeah.
is not a perfect time if you are a professional player to continuously and regularly maintain your activities. Have understanding of your profit loss, the true
Hmm.
financial profit loss, and the potential associated taxes. So
Hmm.
you are running a business, you no longer can just go see your accountant at year end or the following year and just give them your receipts and summarize it. Now you will have surprises if you are not proactive, if you do not record and maintain a continuous monthly profit loss to understand what your tax consequences will be. Because we
Hmm.
all think that yes, we are break even or yes, we have made a little bit of a money. But when we put these numbers down on a piece of paper, and especially if you were playing in high stakes, that number can be a shocking and it can make or break your financial future for that year
Oh
because
yeah.
estimated taxes are due on a quarterly basis.
Hmm. Yeah, and now one other change that I have seen that was not talked about immediately, and it took a few weeks after the bill was passed for it to come out. And I think that the information on this is even more incorrect, is there's talk of people saying that the W-2 G threshold has been raised to $2,000. But from what I have read in uh, the bill is I think it's just for miscellaneous income, right? That it was raised to $2,000, the W-2 threshold. It was not actually for gambling, correct?
So there is currently talk. So what you have heard is the IRS Advisory Council is recommending to increase the reporting threshold to that $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
It has not yet went into effect.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where it also going to become a very interesting scenario because remember, at the end of the day, we've signed our tax return under penalty of perjury.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people unfortunately forget. You still have to report that income whether you get a W-2G or not. It is
Yes.
not worth gambling with your future when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to taxes. So there is going to be probably an increase because of $600 or $1,200, for example, $600 on horse race, $1,200 or bingos, poker tournaments are 5,000. Um, if those rates get raised and you will not get issued a W-2G, it's still a burden for you at that case because you don't have the record to
Mm-hmm.
maintain an accurate accounting of your winnings.
Yes.
So it will probably increase because maintaining records and recording in their, in the casinos systems, it costs money. So the less people have to manage, issue
Mm-hmm.
forms and tax forms and everything else will come into play. And probably at some point, these rates will change because it had been a steady same number for many, many years now.
Yeah, I
But
think that
it will.
that W-2 threshold, the $1,200, been that way since like the 70s, I think.
Yes, many of these items have not been adjusted for inflation or when tax laws have passed over the years
Hmm.
were not readjusted. This will change. And then also, by the way, this will impact a significant amount of foreign players coming to the US
Hmm.
because on the foreign players, you have an automatic withholding unless
Yes.
there's a tax treaty. And on top of that automatic withholding, they may end up facing this additional 10%. There's going to be a potential loss of revenue for states and
Hmm.
businesses, as well as the tournaments might end up be more popular out of this country, which of course will hurt the industry as a whole
Yeah.
potentially.
Hmm. And because I know that the other thing a lot of people don't understand is that there are some states where if you hit a W-2, they take out money as well. It's Mississippi, Illinois, Indiana, a lot of them, they take out, I haven't done the book in several years, but I used to do it every year. I think it's about 5%, most of them, they can withhold from your jackpots. And some states I know that they make you file, even if you're not a resident in that state, you have to file a state income tax return to get the refund on that money that they took out. And some states don't even allow you to file that. You're out of luck. You just got to pay that money and never get it back.
You are absolutely right. So, with this legislation that went into effect, depending on which state the gambling is happening, for example, in the state of California, where I am, we have state income tax. Where you are in Florida, there's none. So, people will
Mhm.
make decisions where they will also going to play, especially if state legislations decide to conform. Conforming means they will adopt federal rules, or they will say, no, we will not adhere to the new OBA rules. We will maintain our existing tax legislation as is. It's going to be a very interesting scenario because, as you indicated, if it's a state income tax is subject to, you have to file an income tax return for that state on the winning that you are earning. So if
Mhm.
you're a professional player, on a federal level, you may have a phantom income of $200,000 based on our example earlier. On the state level, you have zero income tax
Mhm.
up to. So it's going to be very interesting and will impact players where they want to play. Because
Mhm.
if a state also adopts the new rules, and many states usually adopt federal legislations, California is one of those states that not all the legislation gets adopted. But if you live in a state or you play in a state that adopts most of the federal rules, you will think potentially twice because now you're not only paying federal income tax on an income that you don't have, but you also have to pay income tax to the state as well on an income that you never earned. So it's going to be incredibly careful considerations that players will have to make. It is worth it or not. Now, of course,
And
Vegas.
Well, I was going to say, and there's some places I know in Ohio, especially where not only do they take out for the state income tax if you hit a jackpot, they also take out for the city taxes if you hit a jackpot as well.
That's exactly true. So it's going to impact the establishments, the businesses where they are located
Hmm.
versus Vegas. For example, Nevada, there's no state income tax versus Ohio, where you just exactly indicated you all the way up, go down to city taxes.
Hmm.
It's going to create significant decisions that
Hmm.
taxpayers will end up doing. Do I go gamble into this state? Do I want to participate in that tournament?
Hmm.
Will I, if I even if I'm a resident, am I gonna hold off on playing in my own state or wait until I go for my vacation to somewhere else? These
Hmm.
will have significant tax financial consequences as people always change their behavior for better or worse. At the end of the day, none of us like to pay more taxes than what we need to.
Hmm. They say you vote with your wallet, you know?
Exactly right. So this is where talking to your tax professional, if you're a professional player, or even if you're not a professional player, but you are a frequent player, to understand how it will impact your income taxes, especially if you itemize. If you never itemize because you didn't get into those dollar levels for loss purposes, guess what? You still need to understand how your taxes may end up going up as a result.
Yes, my favorite part of taxes is on the tax return form. They have a you said you have to all your winning or all your money that you've made over the years you have to claim. There's a spot for money that you've made from illegal activities. That's my favorite part of a tax return.
Well, hopefully none of your listeners are playing on illegal locations, but
Yes.
there's plenty of live and establishments where it's all correctly handled and the records are properly maintained. But yes, as a taxpayer in the US, you have to report your income, whether you receive the W-2G or not, or any
Hmm.
other type of source of income. And it is very important to do it right because everything has a record, and it is important to understand the consequences if you are not doing it right.
Hmm. And remember, folks, if you think paying your taxes aren't that important, that's how they got Al Capone. That was the only thing they got Al Capone on was tax evasion. So always be careful.
Taxes are a very, very complex environment. It is
Hmm.
important to talk to people that you know as well as seek professional advice, especially if you become a professional player. If you are a casual gambler, it's still important for you because not only your gambling items will matter, but all your other sources of income will
Hmm.
impact your tax payments.
All right, Miklos, thank you very much for joining us today. Oh, well, more importantly, is there any tax changes about the gambling that I've missed?
Not so far. So, but stay tuned because legislation may happen even this year to correct this 10% deduction limitation. And at that point, hopefully, life will be a lot easier for all of us when it comes to
Yes.
filing our taxes and comes to gambling.
And if that happens, I'll have you back on to fix all the new changes that happen.
Very happy to come by anytime you like.
Okay, and if people want to learn more about you and your business, or they want to use you to do their gambling taxes, how can they find you?
Give us a call at 213-283-9002 or connect through us our website at mikloscpa.com.
All right, Miklos, thank you very much for joining us today.
Have a good rest of the day. Thank you for your time.